Hello art friends, and welcome to Alan's Art Adventures. I'm very excited to announce that I was accepted as a member of the Creative Arts Collaboration Group on Facebook, and they're in the middle of a hashtag #LoveWinterArt event. So I thought, as I'm their newest member, I would contribute something unique. I've been carving stamps now for almost 15 years, and I'd like to share how I do that by carving this picture today. I found this photo as a clip art. I searched for Snowflake and clip art on Google and then went through the images and found this one. And I'll include the link to it in the description below. And I'm going to take you through the steps of what I use and how I do it to carve my own hand-carved stamps. I'll later use this stamp in another episode. So, taking this photo, I am going to take my number 2B drawing pencil. 2B is a darker color, so it will really transfer nicely onto the carving surface. And all I'm going to do is trace along all the lines with a pretty heavy hand so that all my colors transfer when I rub it on later. There are much more interesting ways of transferring onto rubber stamping. A lot of my friends use acetone. Some people use a process that requires an iron on a low heat. But I kind of stick to my tried and true method of tracing it with a pencil and then going from there. It doesn't always provide the incredible detail that you can get by transferring an actual photo, but it allows me to have a unique homemade look. So as you can see, I'm just going around the image and I'm tracing it. And because snowflakes are considered to be unique and no two are identical, mistakes and imperfections are actually encouraged as you trace it and as you carve this. And I'll remind you of that fact as we go through, I'm sure. It does not need to be perfect. This is not supposed to look like a computer-generated store-bought stamp. We want it to look handmade and wonderful. Now there are a number of ways to carve stamps. I very specifically chose this image for today's episode because it has dark areas and light areas. Now, I could carve everything that's white out and leave only what is black. Or I could carve the black and only leave what is white. Or I could do combinations of the two. And each way will give you a completely different image, which is what I like. One interesting thing to do would be, when it comes time to carve out everything that is white outside of this area. So leaving all of this solid rubber. And then you would get a beautiful negative impression. And then carve out the insides of each piece and press it again. And you would have two different snowflakes, even though they are the same image and originally the same stamp. So as you can see, I've traced my image. It has led all the way around. And now all I'm going to do is turn it over. And I've already cut my rubber stamp to size so that it will fit. This is made by Speedball, which is also the company that makes my tool. You can get this at most craft stores. And it works great for me. I know a lot of stampers prefer their own particular product. I find most of the products that my friends like are far too soft. I like the resistance that this gives me. It just gives me enough back pressure that I feel like I'm accomplishing something. Whereas the softer elements, I carve through too easily, and it doesn't give me a good result. Now I'm able to, because of the light shining underneath this paper, see that My snowflake is about 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters in from the edge of my rubber stamping surface. I noticed that I can't see that on the screen, but you'll have to trust me. I can fold it right here, and it's about 2 millimeters in. You want a little bit of distance from the edge of your stamp to whatever edge you're going to do, so that you don't undercut it and it doesn't make a good impression when you print it, when you press it down on paper. So all I'm going to do is take the back of my carving tool, and I'm going to rub the lead from the picture that I just drew onto the rubber speedball material. It's very important that when you do this, you keep your picture really still, that you hold it evenly side to side so that it's not moving around. If you move it around, you'll get a very blurred image, and it won't be good for carving later. I'm just going to hold it up and see. So I need to do just a little bit more right here. That's better. And a little bit more right here. Let's see how I'm doing all over. Oh, okay. On this edge. That's the edge that's a little close. Perfect. And as you can see, we've transferred our original image onto the rubber stamp. And that allows me now to carve. So this tool by Speedball, usually when you buy it, it comes with a small, maybe, I don't know, 4x6, 5x7 piece of Speedball rubber stamping medium. And usually there are all of these tools inside the handle, but I've taken them out and lined them up. And you'll notice that each of these pieces is different. So this is a number 6. It's very similar to my Exacto knife, but it has this strange shape. I don't generally use this because I don't like how this sticks out further than the tip. I really like to use my Exacto knife, but it's in there. And then we have the number 5. The number 5 is a very deep scoop. Very deep scoop. I would use this along the outside edges of my stamp where I'm nowhere near the carving medium. And then we have the number 5, number 4. And the number 4 is very interesting. It has a super flat edge, whereas all the others are scooped and rounded. This one goes down and straight across. The number 3 is a very wide V. I'm not sure if you can see that. There we go. A wide V. In comparison to the number 2, which is a much smaller V. And then lastly, the number 1, which I almost exclusively used, is this tiny little V that allows me to cut small areas away. So I'm going to pop that in. All you do is you loosen up the top. Sometimes these pieces get stuck together, and I'll show you what's inside so that you know. So inside, there are these 2 pieces, the bigger piece and the smaller piece. And all that's going to happen once I put it all back together is this is going to slide in here, in between these 2 pieces. And when I screw this down, it will cause a compression setting so that this piece can't fall out at all. I need to quickly put that back together, and we'll be on our way. So I slide this in like so. There we go. And tighten it down. And now this piece can't come out. Some people do all of their carvings using the Exacto knife, and I haven't mastered that technique yet. So for now, all I'm going to do is go around the edges of my black pencil markings, trying not to carve away any of the black. And then I can decide whether or not I want to carve away the insides. A quick note, you'll notice I like to turn my stamp rather than turn my hand. I find that I get a better carve that way. Because I've gone around the outside edges of everything, and I'm trying to do bigger areas, I've decided to switch over to the number 2 because it will just carve out a little bit more, a little bit faster. So now that I've used the number 2 around the outside edges, I'm just going to cut away some of the extra pink because it's not needed, and I think it's just getting in my way. You want to be careful not to take out too much of anything, and always to cut at an angle away from your stamp. So I'm cutting here, I'm cutting downward this direction, and downward this direction. You can see that it's angled in towards the empty space, not in towards the stamp. That's important. For when you try to stamp with it, if there's nothing above it pushing down, it won't work. It won't make a good press. So now that we have the basic shape of our stamp, now we need to carve out all this little pink stuff in between our little pieces of snowflake. For right this second, I'm going to stick with the number 2, but I'm not sure that I will have enough control. I may need to switch back to the number 1 because I definitely don't want to make any mistakes in here. You'll notice that when I bring my tool all the way to the edge, but I don't get all the way there. I just missed it a little bit, and then I carefully pull out like this. You don't want to pull this way towards the rubber that you don't want to damage, because you could potentially pull it kind of like a hangnail, and that would be obviously very bad. Because like cutting hair, you can always take stuff away, but you can't put it back on. As we all know, there are happy accidents, but with rubber stamping, the happy accidents aren't so happy. One thing I do use, so it's very thin here but gets wider, so I'll just put the bottom edge right here into the stamp where I want it to go, and then push down to get my angled line that I'm looking for. Sometimes that leaves, like it did here, just a little bit of extra pink, and I can go back with my number 1 and fix that up. As I said before, I like to spin my stamp around so that I can come at things from whatever angle are needed. I try to let the stamp do the work for me rather than me having to move the tool around a lot. Usually. Alright, so we got around that. We're going to have to come in here with the number 1. And then you need to get all of these angles out. This is perfect for the number 2 because I just set it right into the edge of the V and cut it out with the angle of the tool, which works out quite well. Sometimes the angle's a little steeper, sometimes it's a little lower, depending on what I've got to work with. Now, you're going to notice as you start carving that occasionally you'll see there's a little extra piece, like right here, hanging over. And you can either get them now if you can, or when we do our test print, we'll see where they are and we'll be able to remove them with a number 1 tool. Because you're tearing through the rubber and you gotta figure that there's going to be some markings that aren't going to work out exactly the way you want. Wow. Oh, there we go. Again, you don't want to undercut, so you can always come back and take some more off if you need to. Alright, I'm going to switch back to my number 1 tool because I have some area in here that needs to get taken out and some area in here that needs to get taken out, and the number 2 is just too thick to do it, or at least too thick for me to do it. There, there. So now our stamp is all carved out roughly. There's quite a bit that needs to be removed still, but the only way we'll really see it well is by taking a test print and then looking at the stamp and seeing where there's ink that shouldn't be. Now you could use liquid ink, or you could use what this is. It's called pigment. I prefer pigment. I find it to be just a lot more robust. And all I'm going to do is take my pigment ink and I'm going to pat it all around my stamp. This is black. I like to test my stamps in black just because it helps me to really see where there's ink that might be getting on my stamp and areas I need to fix up. You really want to get it really well coated, like that, and flip it over and press it down. You want to press all around the stamp because this stamp has a lot of points. I would press on each one just to make sure that it's getting full pressure. Good. And then while we're here, I'm just going to take my pencil. I'm going to draw an arrow up on it. That way I know in what relation I need to start taking things off. I'm going to remove my stamp. Now, as I look at it, I'm just going to circle the areas that need addressing. Like here, there's two little dots that need to be removed. Here around this tip, actually I can see it right now. Yep, that needs to get addressed. 1, 2, 3, 4, here, this tip right here, that tip right there, that and that. There's little ones there, there and there, there and there. Oh, well, that shouldn't be there at all. And that looks like it. So I'm going to start, and I have to remember that this is inverted, so this is the top, but this side is now on the opposite side. And it seems like most of the mistakes are on this side of the stamp because it's on this side of the image. Everything's in reverse. So I'm going to take my tool. I'm just going to go around and look at things that need to get addressed. So this right here, what I'm looking to do is if I see anything that's black, I take it off. Anything that got ink on it probably shouldn't be there, unless it's supposed to be there. Now that we've cleaned up our stamp, we're going to ink it again, press it again, and see how we've done. And again, I take my pencil and I just mark the few spots that didn't go well. So I need to fix that, which is right here, and I can see it. Right here, right here, there, there, there. I don't think that's going to get any better there, there. I would say that's enough. So I'm going to start with this corner because I can see it right from here that I really missed something. There. That should do it. I'm actually going to take my knife and cut some of this away. There. There's just too much there. Now that our stamp is complete, we can take a brush marker like this one, which is a light blue color, and just color in the whole top of the stamp. Before you do, you will notice that I've washed my stamp. I've gotten all of the black pigment off. And I've even rubbed it with a paper towel to make sure that it doesn't come off. And I'm just going to color it in with my blue marker. You want to avoid any distinct patterns in your marking. So if you start seeing lines because the marker's a little dry or you pushed a little harder, you want to try and get rid of that as much as possible. Sometimes a circular motion, sometimes a line. It all really depends. This particular marker I've had for a very long time, and I'm surprised, quite frankly, that it still works. But I couldn't find my other set. They're probably out in my car with all of my other stamping supplies. But my whole family is asleep, and I don't want to disrupt everybody by opening doors in my car and going out in the garage and stuff. Now, I mean, that takes a little while to color it all in, and you might assume that your marker has dried by then. And it certainly could have. So what we typically do is hold our stamp and we blow hot, foggy air, kind of like Darth Vader, you know, that, onto the top of the stamp and then press it down. So I'm going to make sure I'm holding it the way I want with my arrow pointing up, and I'm just going to breathe hot air on it. The moisture from your breath lightens up moistens the coloring and re-energizes it, even if it's a little bit dried. And there we have it. Thank you for joining me to learn how to carve a stamp. I'd like to recognize the Creative Arts Collaboration and their hashtag #LoveWinterArt event. And just remember to keep art in your heart.